Ms. Humbert here. Today we're going to be doing the Unit 2 Quiz 1 review. So we're going to be looking over, just getting you ready for that quiz you're going to be taking. So let's take a look at number 1. So for number 1, you're crossing the y-axis at 1. So you're crossing right here at 1. And then your slope is 1, or really just 1 over 1. So what we're going to do is go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Now you'll notice that this is just a slope. It's just an equal sign, so we're going to just draw in, a line, like so. So then we're crossing the y-axis at 5, and then our slope is -1, so we're going down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, and we're going to go ahead and draw that line, okay? So then we want to look at the point at which they're intersecting, and we need to write that point down. Now remember that points go x and then y. So we're going over 2 and then up 3. So that's your solution for number 1 is 2, 3. Now let's take a look at number 2. So for number 2, we're crossing the y-axis at 4. And then we're going up 2 and over 3 from that point. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect that line. Then, for the second one, we're crossing the y-axis at a -1, and then we're going up 2 and over 3, and we're going to go ahead and connect those two lines. So if you'll notice, these two lines have the same slope, and they're not going to cross each other. So that means that there is no solution. Okay? So there is no solution for number 2. Now let's take a look at number 3. So for number 3, in order to graph it, we have to solve for y. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So I have 2y, and let's make that an equal sign instead of a minus sign, is equal to 4x plus 12. So in order to solve for y, we need to divide both sides by 2. So then I get that y is equal to 4 divided by 2, which is 2, and then x, and 12 divided by 2, which is 6. So then, from there, we can go ahead and graph it. So we're crossing the y-axis at 6. And then we need to go up 2 and over 1, which is off the graph. So instead of going up and right, we can actually go down and left. And that we can plot that point. So now I'm going to go ahead and draw in that line, hopefully better than I just did. There. That's as close as Ms. Humbert's going to get today. Then, taking a look at this second one, we have y is equal to 1/3 x plus 6. So again, we're crossing the y-axis at 6, except this time we're going up 1 over 3, which we can't do. So we're actually going to go down 1 and left 3 so that we can keep it on the graph. And then we're going to go ahead and connect those dots. So I see that they're crossing at the y-axis. Well, if we cross at the y-axis, that means our x-coordinate is 0. And we're crossing at the point 6. So 0, 6 is our solution for number 3. Now, let's take a look at number 4. Both of these equations need to be solved for y. So when we have 3y is equal to 6x plus 18, we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3. So then, when I divide both sides by 3, I need to divide each term by 3. 6x divided by 3 is going to give me 2x. 18 divided by 3 is going to give me 6. So we're going to go ahead and graph that. So we're crossing the y-axis at 6 and going up 2 over 1, which we can't do. So I'm going to go down 2 and left 1 to serve the same purpose. And we're going to go ahead and draw in that line. Then we have y plus x is equal to 3. So I'm going to subtract y from both sides, and I get, subtract x from both sides. Goodness gracious, Ms. Humbert. So then I'm going to go ahead and subtract x from both sides, and I get y is equal to -x plus 3. So I'm crossing the y-axis at 3, and then I'm going down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1, and crossing that. So then, I want to see what point that they are crossing at. Well, it looks like we're going left 1, so my x-coordinate is going to be -1. And then we're going up 4, which is a positive 4. So our solution then is -1, 4 for that one. Now let's take a look at number 5. Sarah and Sean each want to buy a scooter. Sarah has already saved $16 and plans to save $8 per week until she can buy it. Sean has $28 and plans to save $4 per week. In how many weeks will they have the same amount of money, and how much money will they have at that time? So we're going to write two equations. We're going to write one for Sarah and one for Sean. So let's start with Sarah. So her total amount of money is going to be equal to, well, for every X week that goes by, it says that she's saving $8. So for every X week, she's saving $8. She's starting with 16. Now, your starting value, when you put things in slope-intercept form, in word problems, that starting value they give you is your B or your Y-intercept. Now, let's take a look at Sean. Sean, for every X week that goes by, is only saving $4, but he's starting with 28. Now you'll notice that we don't have 28 on this graph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this go by 2 and this go by 1s. So X is going to represent the number of weeks that go by, and Y is going to represent the amount of money that they've made. So let's plot Sarah first. So she's going to cross at 16. So we need to go up by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 is right here. Then we need to go up 8 and over 1. So I go up 2, 4, 6, 8. Remember, I'm going up by 2s and then over 1. So that's my line right there, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it the best I can right there. Then I need to go ahead and graph Sean, and I'm going to do it in a different color just so we can see it. So we know that this is 16 right here. So 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28 is right here. So I know he's crossing at 28. And he's going up 2, 4, and over 1. So he's going up slowly like that. Okay, so they're crossing about right here. Again, remember, graphing is really inaccurate, so you may not have exactly what I have. But it looks like we're going over 3. So since we're going over 3, that's our X. So they're going to have the same amount of money after 3 weeks. Now we need to figure out how much money they'll have after 3 weeks. So I'm going to count up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, and I'm going to estimate that at about $34 that they will have after those 3 weeks. Again, as long as you're in the right region, you are A-okay. So let's take a look at graphing some of these. So let's take a look. So let's think about our shading. So for the first one, our alligator's facing away from the Y, which means we're going to shade down. And the line is going to be solid because there's a line underneath it. So let's graph that first one in green. So we're crossing the y-axis at 1. And then my slope is 1x, or 1 over 1. So I'm going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And then I'm going to go ahead and connect that with a solid line. Oops. It's a terrible solid line, Miss Humbert. Okay, and then I'm shading down from there. Now, let's go ahead and let's graph the second one. So when we graph the second one, it's facing towards the Y, so we're going to be shading up. And again, my line is going to be solid. So we're crossing the Y-axis at 4. And then the slope is negative 2/3. So we're going down 2 over 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to have a solid line going through there. And from there, we're shading up. So the region where the two colors intersect is right there. So I'm going to make sure I shade that in really, really dark so Miss Humbert knows that that's my solution. If I have to take too long to figure out what your solution is, I'm just going to count it wrong. Okay? So let's take a look at number 7 now. So for number 7, we need to solve for y. So let's go ahead and let's solve that first one for y. So we have y minus 3x is less than or equal to negative 1. So to solve for 3x, I am going to add 3x to both sides. So I get that y is less than or equal to 3x minus 1. Now let's go ahead and let's graph that. So we're crossing the y-axis at negative 1, which is right here. And then I'm going up 1, 2, 3, and over 1. Okay, now let's take a look at our shading. You always want to look at the end result when you think about your shading. It's facing away from the alligator at the end, so I'm shading down. There's a line underneath, so it's going to be solid. So we're going to make this a solid line, and then from there we're going to be shading down. Now let's take a look at solving that second one. So what we have is we have 2y is greater than negative 2x plus 10. So we're going to divide both sides by 2, and I get that y is greater than or equal to, first I need to divide negative 2x divided by 2. That's just going to give me 1x, which I can also just write as x. And then I need to take 10 divided by 2, which is going to give me 5. So here I'm crossing the y-axis at 5. Okay, I notice that the end result of my alligator is facing towards the y, so I'm going to shade up. And there's no solid line underneath, so my line is going to be dotted. So I'm crossing the y-axis at 5, and then I'm going, this should be negative, down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. And that line is also going to be dotted, and I'm going to shade up. So my solution for this system lies right in this region right here. Now, let's take a look at solving this equation. So we want to solve this for x, guys, and I want you to make sure you completely get that solved for x. I want to have x equals at the end. So first thing we're going to do is distribute. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4, and that's equal to 12. So now we don't just want to leave it here. We want to completely solve for x. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Then I get 4x is equal to 16. Divide both sides by 4, and I get here that x is equal to 4. So on all of these, you should always have the solution x equals, okay? Now for number 9, we're actually going to have an inequality. So the first thing I need to do is get my x's on the same side. I like to take the smaller amount of x's and bring it over to the larger. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3x from both sides. So then I get that x plus 1 is greater than negative 7. So now to solve for x, I need to subtract 1 from both sides because that's a positive 1, so the opposite is subtracting 1. When you take negative 7 plus a negative 1, that's like you're adding the two numbers together, so it's actually going to get more negative. So you end up getting that x is greater than negative 8. Last but not least, we are supposed to put these in slope-intercept form. Now remember that slope-intercept form is y is equal to mx plus b. Well, we can very easily just put this into slope-intercept form. Remember that b is the y-intercept. So all we have to do is plug that in. So m is 3/4 and then x, and then the y-intercept is 5. So this right here is your slope-intercept form for number 10. Now let's take a look at number 11. We're going to start by putting this in point-slope form. Now remember, whenever you have a point and you have a slope, you need to put it in point-slope form. So right here is the slope, which is 3. In this spot right here, you're going to do opposite of the y-coordinate. Since it's a negative 4, we're going to put a positive 4. Since this is the opposite, since it's a positive 5, I'm going to write it as minus 5. Notice I still put the symbols in. Now, to get it in slope-intercept form, we need to solve for y. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute in that 3. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. So now I have y plus 4 is equal to 3x minus 15. To solve for y, I need to get that 4 over to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Once I do that, I have y by itself. Now this negative 4 can only be added with the negative 15. So the 3x is going to stay as is. When you have negative 15 and negative 4, when you add those two together, we end up getting negative 19. They're going to get more negative. So that's your slope-intercept form for number 11, and that concludes your quiz review. So once you've studied this and are ready to quiz, give it to me and I will hand you the quiz. Thanks for listening.